getting more heads in beds lead to customer or guest conversion optimization. We'll be moving through the 7 pillars of digital marketing, the framework that has been developed through our agency, which was founded in 2001. So for the last nearly 18 years, I've had the pleasure and honor and wonderful journey, speaking of tourism and adventure, of seeing the entire evolution of marketing into a predominantly digital sphere and space, where I would say 80–90% of the focus for our clients, who are hotels, airlines, departments of tourism, and other attractions across different markets worldwide. It's a major segment for us, and the major focus is 80% on digital nowadays, which is amazing because back in 2001, 2002, when we started talking digital and web, internet marketing was just up and coming, it took a bit of convincing to get to have hotel owners even build a website or update their website regularly or engage in things like search engine optimization, which nowadays everyone understands they need to do it. But the challenge that all of you face, all of us, that are in this space face, is really how to prioritize amongst the vast options, all the different ways we could spend money on media, all the different ways that usually our limited small in-house teams or even agency teams and budgets could be applied. How do we make sense of it all and really optimize it, prioritize it? And that's really the focus of today's session, as well as the general framework of the 7 pillars that you'll see us continue to bring up as we move forward. So again, a little bit about my background and our background as Blue Liner that I've already given a hint of will be what we start with, and then we'll go through the 7 modes of marketing to focus on tourism ROI and how to really measure your P&L, essentially, and your assessment of when to take on a certain tactic or not through the lens of what kind of return will this give me? How will this increase our bottom line? We'll look at some best practices and case studies across the 7 pillars of digital, and then I'll leave you with some following up and following through thoughts, because it's always great to learn new things and take notes and have all these best practices, tactics, on your notepad and ready to gear up. But then reality hits you. The day and all your tasks come through, and it makes it kind of difficult to execute what it is you've learned. So I want to discuss that with you so that you can have a productive follow-up and follow-through from what your experience is here today. And we should run somewhere between 45 minutes and 1 hour in this session. Great, so let's dive in a little deeper. The Cayman Islands has been a great market for us, and the Caribbean overall. Overall, these, again, 15 plus years. The Department of Tourism is one of our leading clients. We've been agency of record as Blue Liner for SEO, and that's an active client engagement partnership, essentially, that we've been involved in. So I've really gotten to know that particular market. It's a beautiful place, naturally, and within it, all the different private partners work with us as well through our 7 Pillars digital marketing training program, where we go on island and train the hotels, the attractions, and others from in government and also from the private side on exactly the things we'll be talking about today. And we've also been the web development agency of record for the Cayman Islands for a 2-year period, not currently at the moment. We've also worked with major airlines, including Lufthansa. There's a brief testimonial here. It was a multilingual campaign across 4 different languages, multiple markets, and one of their main campaign branding slogans, "We fly home." And we serviced them and got a great result, bottom line result for Lufthansa. We also worked with Izod in launching a fragrance. It's not what they're mainly known for. They're an apparel company, but they launched a fragrance some years ago, and we built an entire kind of tourism-focused Seek Adventure campaign concept here and kind of ran it through. It became like a social media, social networking type of contest. So those are some examples of Blue Liner's work. Tourism isn't the only field we work in, but it is the leading field, I would say, right alongside healthcare. And so we have a lot of experience and war stories to share here. And again, largely the 7 Pillars methodology was formed through our experience with various tourism clients. So what is the 7 Pillars? It is a framework that helps to learn, to budget, to execute, and to analyze everything that we're doing in our particular marketing program and campaigns. So all of these vast options, all these different areas, best practices, new technologies, what the 7 Pillars does for us as an agency as well as for clients that we work with is to help them organize and make sense of all the options and prioritize effectively. We also provide training and certifications that I'll talk about a little bit further, and we're also building an app called the Marketing Matrix, which basically mirrors the process that we take clients through as an agency and allows them to kind of manage their marketing campaigns and build marketing plans through their own kind of web and app asset. So that's something we'll be looking to share as well. But what we're going through today is basically the beginning of that process. Now, we also have the 12 pillars, which is basically when you take digital marketing and traditional marketing and kind of merge them together and look at what happens there, an overall integrated marketing plan, right? So when you look at the 12 pillars, you're now looking at essentially the entire universe of marketing tactics, strategies, options, and looking at it in one kind of a graphical view, just like this, helps us make decisions and understand where we're strong, where we're weak, where we want to possibly double down because we're having good results. So again, super macro, high-level look with the 12 pillars, and then we start digging in deep into the specific tactics within each one. And that's the process and the methodology that we like to move through. Now, what is this matrix we keep talking about? We call it sometimes the 49er matrix. We've recently actually renamed it more technically to the marketing matrix. And it essentially helps us answer these questions. And I'm going to walk us through a case study where we do exactly this. Who's working on it? Who's in charge? What are we actually doing tactically, strategically? What are our goals and how are we doing? So that could really be boiled down into 4 or 5 questions there that we should be asking ourselves all the time. And using data visualization and simple tools that we'll show you here, we can assess that, whether it's on a quarterly basis, a monthly basis. Daily is probably a little too frequent for this because this is more of an evaluation. So we need to kind of give people and tactics a chance. So I would say at least monthly or quarterly, we'd like to kind of come back to the matrix and assess how everything's going and where we might have to make some shifts. Here's an example visually of looking at a project team across this essentially a canvas, right? And we use red, yellow, and green icons, and actually gray as well, which could represent areas that aren't even being addressed or thought about. But we can have a quick bird's eye view, so to speak, of performance across the different pillars, across the modes, and see where there's some red flags and maybe need to make some changes. So with that kind of framework in mind, I want to now dive into the second part of our overall session here, which is let's talk about some big ideas, some best practices, specifically for tourism. Now, some of these concepts are new. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with blockchain, and there's been a lot of, obviously, buzz about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies overall, ICOs, initial coin offerings. I talk about that quite extensively in other forums. But how does that affect tourism? So let's think about that for a minute. There's, first of all, millions and millions of dollars being invested as we speak into platforms specifically for moving tourism, different tourism sector and activities onto the blockchain. things as simple as allowing people to plan and pay for their tourism activities, for their trips. Think about one of the biggest OTAs in the world, Expedia.com, allowing people to pay and book their reservations using Bitcoin, just as another payment option. So before it was credit, debit, then maybe PayPal, which is basically an extension of credit and debit, but it is kind of a new vehicle. And now we talk about giving people the option to pay through various, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency wallets. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal because people often invest and keep a lot of funds in these different accounts. And when you have $5,000 in your checking account and $50,000 in your Bitcoin or crypto account, you're more likely to book that ticket through the account that has more funds in it. You're more likely to spend the extra $500 on that room upgrade or whatever the offer is, from the OTA, or maybe this could be from your website directly. So what would it take to allow your e-commerce and your booking engine to accept crypto? It might still seem a little bit far off and not commonplace today, but believe me, going into 2019, 2020, we are going to see payment and planning of tourism and other things, other types of e-commerce, leveraging the blockchain. And that's just one example. There's others I won't get into here for really lack of time. So that's one big idea to start considering in your own business. And also simple things, dynamic content. We talk about GoPro and using drones to really give people more of an experiential feeling when they're looking at your content, when they're trying to evaluate what it is that they may want to do when they get there, or even decide where it is they want to go. So having a picture of the front of your hotel, if that's the business you're in, from the ground level versus a drone that's 20 feet in the air that could look at the front of your hotel, as well as maybe a bird's eye view looking into your pool and your beachfront property, if that's where you are, is certainly more captivating and appealing and awe-inspiring. So it is very affordable nowadays to have a drone, either your own or to hire a photographer that has that kind of equipment to come in and help you upgrade your visuals or do some type of even live streaming with drone footage or with GoPro, which is possible, with the right kind of setup. As an example, I'll give you an example. In the Cayman Islands, there's a beautiful adventure called Stingray City. It's a tour that's one of the most popular tourist attraction on island. And as you go out on the tour boats, there'll be obviously the captain and other people helping people get in the water and put on their snorkel set. And as the stingrays come up, they'll take pictures of you holding the stingrays and kissing the stingrays. You're supposed to get 7 years of good luck for that. And then they'll offer you later the ability to buy those pictures. And those are great pictures. These are great memories that people have with their families and their friends. One time I went and we had a GoPro with us, and it was not something that the tour operator offered. It's something that we brought. And with my family, we had footage and pictures and videos that were far and away, I would say 10 times more captivating and inspiring than those little snap photos that they took from their equipment. They had great cameras, mind you, but kind of going underwater and getting that dynamic look and feel made a complete difference. You could see the stingrays underwater coming up over the waters. Very engaging. And so just going that extra mile, having that type of equipment, either on hand or on a regular basis, utilizing it, will make a big difference in terms of your adventure and tourism content. Moving on, there's this interesting concept now of these bots and using them in your CRM and in your kind of either it's SMS or even chat bots on your website. communication. And to bot or not to bot is the question, because people say that it's better to interact with a live human being and a live person, and I agree. I mean, when I call somewhere, I'd love to rather talk to someone on the phone than an answering machine where I have to go through a bunch of choices. So I think there's a time and place. There's a time and place for kind of live, real human interaction, and there's a place, there is a legitimate place and space, especially nowadays with the way the bot technology has advanced, to leverage a bot that, let's say, could pull from a whole repository of FAQs and answer questions for people, or just to guide people in a workflow when they land at a site, to ask them questions through a bot and identify that this is a bot talking to you, not a human being. And we ask you a question. Are you interested in one of our attractions? Did you know we have some special packages? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. And this is something that will happen with people when they're on your website, and it could kind of guide them down a path, or at least guide them to a place where they could come to a CTA, a call to action, and either buy what they want or submit an inquiry, or maybe they do need to talk to a person. So just like when you're on the phone and you press 0 and you get to an operator, that's another option that can certainly happen through programming a bot. So it's something to look into. There's a lot of very affordable technology and tools that can initiate both within your live chat on your website, as well as through your CRM and your email tools like HubSpot, obviously that are excellent CRMs that also tie into your email marketing, could easily integrate this kind of strategy. But it needs just that. It needs the proper strategy and the proper thought process to make sure that it doesn't turn off your customers. And it can actually be a great, talking about the theme of our entire session here, a great converter, a great way to convert people that are browsing a website, that are leads into, or at least a lot closer to, actually becoming a booked guest at your property or with your attraction, whatever your main offering is. So next, we're going to go into some web design trends for the tourism industry. These are, it's a lot of common sense, but it's things that, do take some creativity. It takes having the right designer on board, working closely with your development team, and making sure you're also integrating the proper tools, as we just discussed, in terms of CRM and following through and kind of nurturing leads as they come through the process. So the first web design trend here is longer scrolling websites, right? And we give some examples, and you can click on these links and go see for yourself. I'm not going to give the full web experience here, but yeah, you have longer scrolling pages here, parallax scrolling, things of that nature on these websites, and obviously visuals, which we'll come back to a couple of times here. Storytelling, it's not just about trying to drive people straight to the CTA right away, although you want to always make those CTAs visible, but we need to tell a story. We need to talk about the history of our property, of our destination, of our attraction, whatever it may be, and that requires not just good copywriting, but a combination of really crisp copy as well as visuals at the same time to tell those stories. Having big hero images, obviously full widescreen kind of views. Again, I mean, we're showing a lot of desktop-looking things here, but keeping a kind of mobile mentality in mind as well is important. And obviously, mobile operates differently. We actually just are in the process of launching a site where we have a lot of video in the background, and then it's obviously a different experience on mobile. It's a little harder to have that video background in mobile. So you have to think about both mobile and non-mobile experience, and if you have to make a choice or a starting point, mobile would be the priority there. Timed CTAs, just to kind of create that sense of urgency. It does have an effect. It could make people feel a little pressure. You know, you see something, you want to share it with your friends or family, and but you know that this offer is going to expire in 2 days, and it does have an effect, and it's something that's worthwhile to at least test for your particular destination or attraction. Responsive design, for sure. I mean, this is just a standard nowadays. Whatever you do has to be responsive and adaptive to mobile and tablets and multiple formats. That's not even an option anymore. And you'll be, not only will your user experience not be optimal if you don't have this, but you'll also be penalized by Google and the search engines, and just across the board have a negative impact for non-responsive design. High quality photography, also pretty obvious. You don't want to have pixelization and anything that can take away from the feeling of closeness or the feeling of sharpness in any imagery that you use. Of course, at the same time, you want to make sure those images don't eat up tons of space and take too long to load. So they need to be optimized for different mediums, but you want high quality photography for sure. Video backgrounds, we talked about that, especially for the non-mobile part of the user experience. This could be really breathtaking and captivating to have that either constantly rolling in the background, or to give a play button where they could then play a longer form video. Trend number 8 here. We have 15, by the way, so I'm kind of moving through this fairly quickly. Extended drop downs, or as I like to call these, mega menus, where you either scroll over or click on a navigation item, let's say the sandals difference here in this case, and then you get that sub-nav that comes down, and it's not just those additional menu items on the left where it says the closer you look, the better we look, but then it's that whole kind of mini advertisement on the right. Sandals is the only all-inclusive to include it all. That whole piece, that whole rectangular block, is part of the extended drop-down or mega menu. And it's a very powerful way to allow people to have kind of a mini site within the site type of feel, and to continue to highlight your main CTAs and offerings throughout the experience. Again, this is a much harder thing to do when it comes to mobile. So again, mobile versus desktop needs to be considered in parallel, essentially, and how those experiences make sense in one place and not the other, and how to then make the adjustments for the different UX. Reviews, certainly always help. TripAdvisor has kind of the ultimate standard right now for travel and tourism. We get a lot of questions from clients about how to manage their TripAdvisor. We actually do manage it for clients as well, but we also coach them on how to do it effectively themselves, because you really do need someone who is at the point of service, who really understands the product's ins and outs. And if someone complains about a hotel because there was construction and the pool or the gym wasn't available while they had their trip, and they didn't know that before they booked, they might get a complaint there, and the general manager or someone from the actual premises is really best equipped to answer those questions and engage with customers in that way, and not leave negative reviews and even positive reviews unengaged, unanswered. So we do a lot of coaching on that. We also get this question frequently about whether to pay. Just like with Yelp, TripAdvisor also obviously has paid premium services and costs that come with that. And it's not cheap nowadays. I mean, there's all types of options and levels. My general feeling is that, yes, you go ahead and you pay for that upgrade, as long as you're going to actually utilize it. Don't just pay for it and then not utilize all the extra features and tools that are available to you there through that premium spend. And again, if you've been reviewed well or won any rewards, having those stamps on your web pages and your social media helps make the consumer and the end user feel more confident, more comfortable in your authority, in your authenticity, so to speak, and trustworthiness. So these things, I mean, this is proven science. They do matter, and they make a difference when it comes to people actually clicking those final couple of buttons and putting their credit card in, et cetera. And obviously, it goes without saying, you need to secure websites and apps for people to transact and feel comfortable putting their payment and their credit cards in with you. Having a story about your location with some type of history and some type of explanation, as you see in this case with Belize, is a nice piece of content and a trend that we're seeing regularly. Planning tools, planning trips, I feel is a big weakness in the market, and we're starting to see players like Airbnb and other OTAs start to offer things like not just booking your room and the place you're going to sleep, but what kind of experiences you're going to now have when you make your visit. So obviously TripAdvisor's been doing that for a while, Yelp and others, but Airbnb, I feel, which is, by the way, as most of us know, the most valuable travel tourism company in the planet. So they've exceeded all the airlines and all the major hotel chains, including Hilton and Marriott and others, in terms of valuation and value. And it's pretty amazing for a startup tech company to have taken it to this level, and it's because they're solving these problems, helping people plan their trips. As you can see in this kind of footer menu here, there's some trip planning tools, and others are developing, but really itinerary planning, trip planning is a big trend. It's something that you can do. Obviously, every hotel has a concierge that will help people. Now, taking that to another level is what's able to happen through apps, mobile technology, and there's two levels of planning. There's one where you're trying to decide where to go, and there's this whole gap of time that happens after you've booked a trip. Let's say you're going to Brazil in this case, and now you have 2 months before the trip where you might not even be thinking about it, but you might want to spend a little time every week, most people do, trying to understand what it is they're going to do with their time. And so these tools certainly can add value there. Okay, performance and speed goes without saying. We want to always check on that and make sure our load times are up to speed. Otherwise, we will get penalized in search engines and general user experience frustration. Tailored content based on whether someone's coming from a local or regional or very far away destination or origin, let's say, and tailoring content to people based on not just language, but just context. Getting to, in this case, New Zealand from Australia is a different story than getting there from Hong Kong. Is a way different story than getting there from New York. So you definitely want to cater to your audience with unique and tailored content, both on your website, through your CRM and marketing automation, as well as your social media. Having, big and prominent booking CTA modules, as you see in this case here, is definitely a trend, and it's something that works. Even if it might seem intrusive, for the most part, if someone's here at a hotel looking at different pages, they're most likely shopping around and interested, and you want to make it very easy for them to be able to submit their inquiry or actually book right there online in one shot. One-stop trip booking is also a very effective trend that we see happening here, because if they're on the hotel site, why not allow them to book the hotel and the air travel in the same place? That's why we love OTAs, right? That's why, for myself, even if I like the way a hotel site looks, I'd rather go to Orbitz, because I can book the hotel most likely at a similar price, as well as get my airfare, as well as book my car rental. So this is the reason why the OTAs are so effective. But now hotels, and we've actually worked with a few to reverse or compete with the OTAs, because hotels, as we know, would much rather book directly on their site where they don't have to pay the 20 to 30% to Orbitz, TripAdvisor, and Expedia and all the other OTAs. So this is, a big part of the reason why we're here having this type of discussion, right? How to get more conversion on your own web traffic. You have to make it convenient for them. And this trend right here is very important in doing that. You allow them to book everything in one shot, in one page, instead of having to do it in 2-3 places. So that's it for this particular set of trends. Now, I do want to show a couple of case studies, but again, just kind of staying in the 7 Pillars framework, I'm showing some samples here and these samples are based on reality of our 15 plus years, that when people are trying to understand what kind of spending is required, and also if I spend, let's say in this case, this $3,000 a month to do some new type of content marketing, which I previously wasn't doing, what kind of ROI can I expect, and when am I going to start seeing that kick in, right? And here you can see an example of how, at least when we make recommendations, because it's based on so much actual work history, it really becomes quite scientific. As long as these things are done and done well, because there's a way to do everything, obviously, not so well, average, and very well. So, it's one thing to say we're going to do it, it's another thing to do it well. We're showing here what kind of expected EROIs, the expected ROI or increase in revenue we could see within a certain period of time. And to be able to define that in a kind of mathematical, financial bottom line way is what we do. So I'm going to show a couple of examples. Here's one for content marketing. Here's one for doing a web design upgrade. And these numbers aren't necessarily going to be the same for everybody, right? 60% growth depends on what your starting point is. So it's going to be different for every case. But in this case, here's a sample of how there could be a 60% increase in revenue noticeable within 8 months, which is actually verifiable through completed mobile registrations, less drop-off from mobile users, and mobile users returning to complete registration following research. Also, online media spending, again, an example of an increased budget, and what it would take to get a 60% revenue increase within 2 months, because usually media does get a quicker ROI than some of these other tactics that are also effective, but that take longer to kind of validate and verify the returns. CRM, as I've talked about several times, again, using tools, like HubSpot and, certainly others that are also effective, but really allowing one to integrate, what they're doing on social media with email marketing, with the actual workflow that is happening with users coming to a website, not just once, but then coming back because they've been prompted through an email with a special offer. So really investing in the entire potential user paths or user journeys that could possibly happen and that do regularly happen. There's endless ways the users can journey with typical tourism websites, but there's usually 5 to 7 main pathways and ways that they can go as they're in different phases of research, just an initial research phase versus ready to kind of book a phase. So, CRM marketing in this case, the recommendation and the potential return on investment that could be seen by engaging that. So now I'm going to switch gears to another presentation, and this is going to take us into an old case study just to kind of verify and validate how long we've been doing this. This one is about 10 years old, and it's with Chalk Creek, which is a beautiful, beautiful eco resort in Belize. And when we redesigned their blog specifically, engaging with a content strategy and a whole kind of CRM follow through as well as SEO that actually drive the content and traffic to the blog and to the website, where they did also have their own booking engine built in by another agency actually. There was a major increase in website traffic, as you could see here, and it mostly resulted because of the combination of this, very nice looking blog, which actually won awards for its design, with a combination of great content and great SEO. We were able to actually get keywords like honeymoon vacation into a top 3 position within Google. And we saw online reservations go from 60% to over 90%. Their actual booking occupancy went to over 90% as a result of this. So when we started with them, they weren't showing up for most of these major keywords, whereas a year later, you can see here, I can't highlight, but I'm showing with the mouse here, honeymoon vacation in a 2nd position in Google, adventure travel in a 4th position. So not even just within Belize were they competing highly, but just for overall general travel, they were competing, and attracting visitors from basically worldwide source markets. So the visitor trends, you could see how the visitor trends also increased, let's say from December 06, 2,600 unique visitors to 3x that a year later, and some 2x growth here, year over year. That's in overall traffic. And now we look at reservations in this case, September to September, 60 bookings, October to October, double the bookings, November to November, almost triple. So there's only 1 month that was slightly down, but in general, we're talking about major increases. So very proud of that particular case study, which really set the stage for, what our practice has been over the last 10 plus years since then. Now, let me just come in to actually a page on our website where I'm going to show another quick case study. Here on, this is for St. Lucia, one of St. Lucia's top 2 hotels, the Body Holiday and Rendezvous, which are part of the Sunswept Resorts group that we'd worked with as agency of record for 7 years. Been a great run with Andrew Barnard and the team there. Great group of owners and very smart marketers in their own right. And the major thing they were looking for, again, to our theme, more heads in beds from the North American market. They'd been very successful with European market based on their background and connections, but they really needed help and wanted to see more visitation from North America. And we helped them do that, by employing these various pillars as well as these different modes here, as you can see. I'll jump through this a little bit. It's only 12 slides, and it's actually also on our website, which I'll make sure to send everyone so that they can have that as a reference point. But as you can see here is really multi-pronged. There was different SEO improvements, getting different competition within St. Lucia as well as the Caribbean overall that improved, through the efforts. So, people always ask about things like SEO and how much is there really to do if the content's not changing as much. And the main point to make here is that our digital strategy and our website and our mobile versions of our site needs to always be dynamic. It should always be changing. So SEO should always be part of your ongoing strategy, whether you're hiring an outside agency for it or whether you're learning how to implement it for yourself. It needs to always be something that we're considering in the mix. Landing page improvements and general UX certainly needs to be considered, and in this case, creating mobile versions, testing different CTAs, checking analytics and doing different types of A/B testing to see what works well, what works better, and then creating very specific, conversion-specific landing pages, as we did in this case, based on very specific activities that the Body Holiday was known for, like well-fed body yoga, pre-Christmas restoration, an evergreen landing page. And those things prove to be very effective with just really simple CTAs like what you see here. Here's just a quick look at, a kind of periodic improvements across AdWords. I mean, again, some people think it's kind of a set it and forget it strategy. It's absolutely not. Any type of online media and advertising needs to be constantly monitored, tested, and if not, just know that your competition is doing so and optimizing in ways that you could be. And that could leave you spending more money than you need to. And in this case, based on some of that optimization, we're able to get cost per conversions way, way down here, as you can see, $93 to under $60 in this case, and even under $5 for at least this 7-month period in this case here. I won't go through all of this, but just so you can see that it's multi-pronged. It's not just SEO or just content. It's a bit of everything. It's a little bit of everything. And a lot of times people think, Facebook advertising is just more for brand awareness, not for conversion. And that's not necessarily the case. In this case, with just a couple $1,000s in Facebook advertising, we're able to attribute very specifically to Facebook 5 bookings. And you're talking about bookings here for a very expensive property where people spend on average $6,000, $7,000 a booking. So it's a great ROI on that. And that's not inquiries, that's bookings, right? So you're talking about, $30,000, $40,000 worth of top line on a $2,000 spend here. That's something I think anyone, on this, in this session, in the tourism business would take. But again, it gets very technical, to make sure things are measured properly using Tag Manager, pixels, implementing remarketing, cross-domain tracking, which is challenging when it comes to sending people from your web page, which could be a hotel or some type of destination, then to a separate booking engine, and how to make sure as people go from one website to another on the back end, there's cross-domain tracking all the way through, so we can do what I like to call, an effective closed funnel analytics. Okay, so again, some ROI here on the number of bookings they're able to achieve, mostly through a combination of, as you can see, SEO. 21 out of 29 of these actually came from organic search. So organic and paid work together very well. Overall for this, we're looking at a 1,600%, a 300+% ROI, all in, when it included agency fees as well, and 1,600% on the ad spend alone. And again, this got tracked down to very specific markets where we looked at, let's say, the US segment versus Canada versus UK in terms of the number of bookings and the average order value per booking, which is very important. Understanding your customer lifetime value is just as important, but it starts with what's the average order value. So if someone's going to come visit once and spend $6,000 and has a great experience because we have a great property, they're most likely going to come back next year or every other year whenever they're looking to take another beautiful Caribbean vacation. So these are all important factors to look at and consider, and that is the end of this particular case study. So let me get back to our mainline presentation. In fact, I'm going to jump to something else, and this one I wish we had another 30 minutes to go through very deeply, but I'm going to give you the high level here. And this is what I like to call our, basically we're taking the modes of marketing and we're using the marketing matrix. This is a nice sneak peek for you into what the matrix looks like. And here you could see M1 through M7. These are basically the 7 modes. Okay, the first one here is ideation or brainstorming, discovery, whatever we want to call it. This is the beginning of trying to understand what are some new ideas we can do to differentiate ourselves, what is truly unique about us, what are our USPs, how does competition look, some key market research, things of that nature. So what you'll see, again, in this app that we're developing, in this process that we take our clients through, and I'm doing this here with kind of a a phantom hotel. We're calling it the Caribbean Dream Hotel. And this is the matrix, the marketing matrix for the Caribbean Dream Hotel. And here you can see in the ideation phase, what we're doing is just trying to list down what kind of product updates we might have, our key marketing assets, our USPs, unique selling points, etc. You can kind of see what happens in this grid. And this is something you could always come back to and obviously add to at any time. But if you can't answer this question in a very articulate way, it's going to be hard to kind of build a strategy that actually differentiates you from anyone in the market. Doesn't mean you need to be the highest end or the best, but you have to kind of find what it is you're good at and where you really stand out from the crowd. So a good competitive understanding is important to get through this kind of brainstorming stage. Before we could move on to the next stage, you could see how elaborate this process is. This is what we call kind of the process or modes wizard. And step 2 here in this is basically then understanding what our budget is and what kind of ROI we're looking for, right? So here we look at, we really ask ourselves what's most important to us in terms of what we're looking to budget for, where we think we need some support. All of these are important, these 5 items here, because these are really 5 steps in a marketing funnel: raising awareness, consideration or engagement with, let's say, leads, acquisition, number 3, which is what most people want to focus on all the time. How do I get to acquisition? That's the title of our session here, right? Getting leads to then become actual paying customers. So that's why in this case, we're putting a weight of 40% on that. But after acquisition, there's retention, right? There's even utilization. People sometimes spend money to buy products or to go to a destination, and maybe they don't really get the most out of it. And we're not going to get a great advocate, which is the final step, which is where we want someone that has become such an advocate and a fan of what our offering is that they start referring other people to us. So this is the beginning of the ROI process. This is just one set of questions. And then as we go through it, let me actually pull to a different view here, which will allow me to just move through this quickly. We're not going to go through all of this now, but here's where we look in and start setting marketing goals, very specific acquisition goals, 10% growth, 20% growth, occupancy rates up. So you really need to obviously understand what your baseline is. What's our baseline occupancy rate? Naturally, it might be seasonal in this case, so we can look at it month to month and then understand based on our inventory and our ADRs what our goal might be. What's a reasonable goal to increase? And the average web booking, because maybe booking and even direct web booking as opposed to like OTA web booking, which is another separate channel for generating leads in business. And then utilization, right? In this case, if you're a hotel, in this case the Caribbean Dream Hotel is looking to get people who've already booked to spend more money by utilizing more of the services that they offer on site, like spa services in this case, or if they have actual restaurants within the hotel, or other kind of treatments, excursions that are either run by the hotel or partner tour companies. How do we create more engagement and get people to plan that before they even arrive or when they get on site? How to give them those offers and options, and how to set goals around that is the stage we're in now. So again, these modes basically take us all the way through planning our marketing strategy and then executing it. So building a larger lead database, etc. So let me get to the next one just so I can show you what all of the different modes are. Obviously, with our goals, hand in hand comes what kind of budgets do we have available to work towards those goals. Now, I always find it funny, general managers or owners of different tour companies, of course, you want to spend as little as possible. That's the obvious answer. If you can double your business and spend $5,000, why Why budget 100,000? So, but we have to be realistic, right? So that's why I like to work within a budgetary range, just to know how much cash flow is available. Because if we're really tight and running a really, really lean ship where there's not a lot of cash available, either from current revenues or another source, it's really a different approach. We have to be realistic about what might be available to pursue our goals. And if we don't have major resources available, we most likely need to make a shift. It doesn't mean we can't still aim high, but we have to be realistic about what it's going to take, either budget-wise or just pure effort-wise, to achieve those goals. So it's a very important question here. Understanding your customer lifetime value, again, not just the one-time booking for, in this case, the hotel, but the repeat guests and the advocates that refer other people and what that's worth to us. So in this case, we're assuming that a real high-end customer is actually worth $10,000 to us, even though they don't spend that much money with us on any given occasion. Over the lifetime, their value to us is this much. It's a very important number or set of numbers to understand. Right, now with all that in place, we could move to starting to develop a strategy, which has a lot of different levels to it, and it involves a combination of in-house versus agency or consultants. Whoever it may be that's running it, we need to know who's in charge, who are the key stakeholders, how confident are we in the current strategies, usually based on the results they've gotten, and where it is we need help. That's essentially what gets answered here. What are the different tactics or areas? We could, again, use the 7 pillars model here, digital and traditional, to see what's been on and what's been off, and generally speaking, what we've been doing in that area. Okay, so with that in hand, we start looking at which people and which tools are being used across the different pillars to actually get the work done. I'm going to kind of shift gears back to our mainline presentation now, but hopefully this was helpful to give you a brief overview of the kind of methodology and type of planning that's needed to really understand, where you stand now, what you're trying to achieve, and who can help you actually execute that. Now, coming back here, I want to leave you with some follow-up opportunities, right? Because as we said at the top, there's a chance you can follow up with us. You have my contact information here. Sorabel Fernandez is our practice area manager for travel and tourism, and I'm sure anyone who's participating in this session has been in touch with her, has her information as well. And here's a chance for you to get agency support from Blue Liner. We have some interesting programs now, including what we call marketing packages, which are more kind of bite-sized service packages that start as low as $500 a month, or even one-time fees for very specific projects. We also have a campaign we're calling the test drive, which allows you to bring us in for a day or half a day to just kind of allow us to help you build a strategy and allow you to experience what it's like to work with members of basically a travel marketing agency that's been doing this for a long time. And so please follow up if we can support you in any way there. I do think the best way to go about this is to have a nice combination of in-house talent and agency kind of outside consulting support. Having that combination and that teamwork is essential, because there's no way an agency can come in and take over everything that you need to do for marketing an attraction and a property and a business that is experiential, and where you need people on site that can do things as simple as taking pictures and getting customer kind of testimonials and feedback. So please follow up and talk to us if we can support you in any way. Following through, taking whatever the one or two best ideas that you got from this session and actually following, making time in your weekly schedule and your daily schedule to execute it, to implement it, instead of just letting it, sit as a nice idea in your Evernote or in your notebook that you might not look at for the next 3 months. So if there's one thing you can do, make a commitment, right now, today to following up and doing something yourself or within your current team structure that doesn't have to require extra cost, and just follow up and do it, experiment with it, try something, test it, see if it works, and then make it part of your day, your ongoing marketing practice for the things that do work. And then lastly, I would say to grow. How do you keep growing? Keep showing up to webinars, to seminars, reading books, watching videos, and just growing yourself professionally, regardless of what position you sit in an organization. You might be the owner, but as we know, the owner's got to wear a lot of different hats and do many things, so even they can grow. I'm an owner of an agency. I can grow. Every day, I'm more of a student than a teacher. I appreciate this chance to kind of share some of my years of experience and call it wisdom in the space with you. And I invite you to consider looking at the 7Pillars certification. It's something that I've been very passionate about. Obviously, I've helped to grow it over the years. It's helped our agency become what it has over these 17 plus years. And it can definitely help you continue to grow your ability to be really a scientist, a marketing scientist. That's what the 7Pillars certification offers. So if you're interested in knowing more about that for yourself, for other members of your team, to build, as we say here, winning marketing plans for 2019, 2020, and beyond, please feel free to reach out, to me by the email you see there, or through our website, bluelinerio.com. And again, follow up, follow through, and continue growing. Take care, and we'll see you next time.